Vecchione?
Vecchione.
Vecchione. Okay, I wasn't even close.
You were close.
I was a little close. Author of Crooked Brooklyn. Everybody listen or watching, there it is. I'll link it in the bio and in the top comment.
It's great.
Little eerie. I started, and I was recommended to you through Bruce Sackman, and I was like, all right, getting into another investigator, but great narrator, by the way. It goes with it perfectly. And it started.
Yeah, it's very good, right? In fact, I'm just finishing up a new one.
Yeah.
We got a deal just before the pandemic hit to do another one of these audiobooks.
Oh, yeah?
About a Sicilian hitman who used to be an informant for me at some point.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so we're my writing partner and I are just about finished. We're on the last chapter. We need to turn it in sometime in January. So hopefully you'll have me back when
I will, absolutely 100%. You don't have a say in the matter of having you back. It's like I tell Bruce. Bruce came on once, and I was like, "You're screwed, man. You're coming on my podcast all the time." But Bruce hasn't narrated his book. Granted, that wasn't you. That was a narrator. But Bruce doesn't have an audio book. Bruce's book.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't.
I roast him every time. I'm like, Bruce, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah. Well, it's with these publishing companies. It's a matter of money. It's just how much money is the book making? How much money do I have to expend for, or do they have to expend for the for the actor who reads it and all the production costs?
Yeah.
So
I told Bruce. We're getting way into this. For everybody listening, why don't you introduce yourself? I'm sorry. I always forget to do that.
Well, my name is Michael Vecchione, and I now am retired from the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. I was chief of the rackets division for about 13 years, and now I'm writing books about the adventures that I had, and I had many during the time I was in the DA's office. So. And thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for coming on, sir.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for coming on. Yeah, your book's bad. Let's go back to Bruce. I've told Bruce, I'm like, he said the same thing. He's like, I don't know how much it costs, how much. I was like, Bruce, just grab your book, come on my podcast. I'll start recording. I'll just leave the room for 8 hours and just read your book. And I tell this to every author I have on. My generation is so ADD. I will not sit down and read a book unless I am forced to at gunpoint. But if I can just throw on the audio, I will go, it's the inverse. I will not only listen to what I'm interested in, I will go out of my way to listen to anything and everything.
Exactly. I know that. We're, I have to tell you that it was a little bit, the one I'm writing now is my fourth. Mm-hmm. So when we got this deal, I was very surprised that the first one came in the form of an audiobook. Yeah. And our agent said to me, Mike, this is the way it goes now, that's the way of the world. Yeah. So I'm happy. I'm happy that it's, I loved this audiobook, the one that you're talking about. The actor was great. Yeah. And he's done some of the voices that are, that were there. And this one that I'm doing now is going to be a little interesting because the hitman had this very thick kind of Sicilian broken English, and he would have talked like this to me. Yeah. So I'm waiting to see who the actor is going to be that they get to do the reading. It's going to be quite challenging for him because we do a lot of dialogue in the book,
Yeah.
So,
I was going to say, it's so it started and I was listening to it. I was like, all right, awesome, like great firsthand account. But I was only like, I don't know, 20 minutes in, and it got to the point of like, so they like killed the guy, right? They whacked him, they threw his body out in the woods, and again, I was like, all right, seems like it's par for the course. But then they they get the skull and they punch the teeth out so there's no dental records. That's when I went, oh shit. I was like, this is just jumping up a notch. But
it was quite a case. When I first started with that investigation, the first thing that came to my mind was the Sopranos episode where they took the Russian guy into the woods to kill him, and he disappears. They shoot him, but he disappears, and that's what this was like. Because when the driver of the car, who was my informant, told me the story, and he said he heard the shots, and then nobody came out of the woods.
Yeah.
Not the certainly didn't expect the guy that got shot to come out of the woods, but he expected his partner to come out of the woods.
Yeah.
He didn't come out. And so he went in, as you probably have gotten to the point at this one. He went into the woods to see what was going on, and then gets attacked by the guy who has 2 bullet holes in his chest.
Yeah.
So, then he gets attacked and gets knocked down, and he's actually fighting with the guy when the shooter comes out and crushes his skull with a 2x4.
No, I got through the whole book. It's a great book. It's
you did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm happy to hear that.
Come on now, I'm a professional. If I'm going to have a guest on that wrote a book, I'm going to listen to their damn book. They're giving me their time. Good. They're coming on, giving me content. I'm going to listen to their book.
Terrific.
I would feel like a hooker. I feel like a low-class hooker. You know what? I may be a hooker, but you know what? I'm a high-class escort. I go for Russian oligarchs. I'm not a hooker. But yeah, it's... So when I had on Jack Garcia 2 weeks ago, last Monday, 2 Mondays ago.
How is he? I know Jack very well. Is he?
Yeah, he's awesome.
Healthy?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
Terrific.
yeah. He and I text. We text each other memes. He's a funny guy. He is. He's coming on again Monday. But so he was talking about, wearing a wire, and I guess in my mind, because despite all of the like Cold War history I devour, I just assumed that wearing a wire was still the same as like 1950s, and you had like telephone cable in your shirt.
No.
I just assumed because, I'm an idiot. I was like, man, how are they still wearing wires? But you go into your book, I mean, they say it's as thin as a human hair, and the guy just weaves it into the lapel.
Yeah.
I was like, shit. Okay.
Yeah, and the what it was connected to. Those were the microphones. Usually with the technology that we were using, you don't need to use microphones, that the device is so sensitive that it picks it up. But we, in that case, wanted the microphones because the judge, it was a crooked judge who was shaking down a lawyer for money in order to sign a settlement on a big case.
Yeah.
He would whisper into the lawyer's ear.
Yeah.
So we were afraid that the device, which would be in his pocket or somewhere else, wouldn't pick it up, and that's why our detective George was able to. He came up with that idea about the wires in the lapels of his jacket.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I got to tell you this, Tom. When we asked the lawyer, we said to him, next time you come in, we're going to wire you, bring a jacket. And he said, well, for what reason?
Yeah.
We said, and bring a jacket that you don't want anymore. Because we had to cut it open and do the tailoring. So it was worked perfectly. I got to tell you, the quality of the audio tape of the recording was fantastic.
Yeah.
So
and that sent me off on this like whole mental rabbit hole. If you can't tell, this podcast, there's no topic, we just let it run. So after listening to that, the thin as a human hair and woven into I just began thinking, I was like, man, how many, like, I'm just thinking Cold War, even through today, I'm like, how many like nice suits have been gifted? How many suit stores have CIA fronts in Hong Kong or Beijing or Moscow? How many night, or even just intercepted mail? You ordered a new sweatshirt, but we got to keep an eye on that Tommy character. You tag it, slice it open. I wouldn't notice. There's a bunch of little strings in here. That just got me thinking. Then it got me thinking about like Secret Service and everyone in the White House, and it's like it's probably this whole. Yeah. I mean, granted, I know they're all connected via there, but it just got me thinking. I was like, oh man, it gets shadier and more shadowy very quickly than I ever imagined.
Oh yeah, let me tell you another suit story.
Sure.
It's in the new book, and it's a little different, but it's a suit story, and it kind of fits in exactly what you were saying. So this guy that we're writing about, he's enlisted by the Bonanno crime family to transport heroin across the country from New York to Los Angeles.
Okay.
And of course, he has to. It's before 9/11, of course, so there wasn't the kind of scrutiny that there is now with smuggling things onto airplanes. It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
Back then, it was still difficult, but not impossible. And so what they had him do, the wise guys, his handlers, They had him buy a suit that was several times bigger than him, and he was a small, short but heavy guy. And the suit was big and had deep pockets. They had to get it custom made. So when he would smuggle the heroin, he would fill the pockets in this big suit with the heroin packages. And we're talking about kilos. We're not talking about, little dime bags. We're talking about a lot of heroin. And what he would do is wait until just before the doors to the plane would close, and then rush up with his ticket to the ticket taker and get on, because no one would, hurry up. And no one cared, because he was a heavy guy, so he had this big fat suit on, but the fat was really packages of heroin. And he did it and he couldn't fall asleep, of course, on the cross country trip, because they were afraid that someone would get wise and maybe touch him or wake him up or something, and they were afraid that would blow the whole deal. He did several of those trips, about 15 of them, across the country with the packages of heroin, and never got caught once. So it's unbelievable.
Insane.
Yeah.
I moved home in 2016 from Georgia up here to Maryland, and I just threw all my clothes in like trash bags, just big black trash bags, and didn't think anything. Just threw it in the back of my little Honda Civic. I mean, I had been in a college town for like 6 years. Right. I drove home and just kind of being, I mean, there's no other word for it, just being lazy. I just didn't take them out for like months, because I don't know, I had workout clothes, I had clean socks. I was like, I don't need all that other shit, just being a guy. But I was also going up and I was visiting my grandmother in New York. So like once a week for like a year, I was just driving from Maryland to New York. And I remember one time my dad walked out and was like, saw my car and was like, "What is all that?" And I was like, "Oh, it's just clothes." He's like, "You're going up and down this corridor?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "You're going to get pulled over by a black SUV one day because they're going to think you're a mule." And I was like, "For what?" And now I'm like just packed to the ceiling with like trash bags, and I'm going through like downtown Manhattan and stuff. I'm parking for hours in weird spots, doing nothing wrong, but in my mind, I'm like, "Oh, I didn't do anything wrong." But yeah, that might not have been a good idea. But
well, let me tell you another story about on the same topic.
Sure.
So the same guy was tasked with flying to Miami, meeting a guy down there who had a red Porsche, a small red Porsche. He was his compadre in this whole operation. And he met him, and the reason that my guy was going down there was to literally ride shotgun in this 2-seater Porsche with 100 pounds of heroin in the back of the Porsche.
Jesus.
And they drove from Miami all the way to Brooklyn. And the question that I had for him was, how the hell did you not get stopped? Yeah. And he didn't. But when he testified, this guy was so good as a witness. He was called by President Reagan's Commission on Organized Crime to testify in front of Congress. And one of the commissioners asked him, "Why did you have the shotgun?" And his answer was, "I can't guard heroin with a lollipop in my pocket. I have to have I have to have a shotgun." Because they were afraid, not of the cops. Yeah. They were afraid of, somebody, a highwayman to use a very odd term at this point, but someone to steal all the heroin.
Absolutely.
So, but he did that a few times, all the way up the Eastern Seaboard without getting stopped once by the police. The commissioners on this commission were shocked that law enforcement, they got through law enforcement. But when you think about it, if you don't give the police any reason to stop you, they're not going to stop you, So two guys riding in a red Porsche from Miami to New York is not necessarily going to cause. I think I would have used a different car because it is a flashy car, but they made it.
But that might be even the move, is to use a flashy car. Hide it in plain sight. Be like, these idiots wouldn't possibly be doing this because they're in such a flashy car, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe it's just I don't know, two bachelors in a flashy car, whatever. They're living their best life.
Yeah. Well, he did it. Yeah. He did it.
That's what I always think of is like, man, if you really wanted to traffic drugs, what you'd do is like you'd put it in cars of people that don't know they're even trafficking. Like, right?
Yeah.
That'd be the way to do it. I don't know how you would do it, but I don't necessarily mean like someone's trafficking something and they're not in the need to know, so you don't tell them what it is. I mean, like, you would somehow in all of my crime brilliance, like, I know what I'm talking about, you would somehow find someone that didn't even know that they were trafficking, like a, I don't know, like a U-Haul truck, you would just, I don't know, GPS tag it, just because that's going to be the most because they actually don't think they're doing anything wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's happened. It's happened where they dupe people into thinking that it's one thing and really it's something else. So it's not unheard of, you know. So but the other thing with this guy is that they sent him to Chicago a number of times too to mule heroin back and forth, but not with a plane, with a train. And the reason is because he was trafficking it in suitcases. And if he was on a plane back then, if you had a suitcase that size, you would need to check it. So they didn't want to run the risk of somebody getting nosy and opening it. So he took the train, and he had to have the suitcase with him the entire time so that nobody would disturb it. So they were ingenious in terms of getting this stuff, around the country. And this was all part of an operation that was dubbed the Pizza Connection, because what they were doing was the heroin was coming from Sicily, and it was being smuggled into Canada and to the United States in boxes that contained pizza supplies like olive oil and cheese and tomato sauce, that kind of thing. And they had pizzerias from New York to Chicago that were part of the operation, and stuff would come in, and then somebody would go to the pizzeria and take the heroin from wherever it was, however it was smuggled in. So
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's good. Luckily they had, at the same time, there was an FBI agent like Garcia, but you know this guy, Donnie Brasco, the Donnie Brasco story. He was embedded with these people, with the Bananos at the time, and learned of the operation, and that's how it started. The investigation started, and then it got busted several years later. So my guy was one of the mules, and a very, very successful mule too. Never got arrested, never. So
it's. How do you think self-driving cars are going to play into this whole equation? Because what if you can just, because they're talking about, obviously they're not at 100. They're not at 100% automation yet, but I mean it's coming. And then what's also coming is them. It's kind of funny. Uber was like, apparently Uber contacted Tesla like 2 years ago, and they're like, hey, like we'd love to go in on a business venture. We'll let you get in on like our market, and you use your self-driving cars. And Tesla was like, we don't need you. Like, we have the self-driving cars. That's the hardest part of the equation. Like, we'll figure out an Uber system. But point being, what if something like that happens and you just get some Cybertruck with like 1,000-mile range? And this podcast not sponsored by Tesla, but if you just get some Cybertruck, right, and you just have that thing pull up, and I don't know, you just throw a suitcase in there, or you just have a bunch of self-driving heroin that if it gets caught, there's no one in it. And is that a problem? Is that going to be a problem?
Well, here's why I don't think that they would do it for long distances. Short distances, maybe. Okay. They would be afraid of exactly what you just said. Something happens to the truck. Yeah. And it breaks down. Then they lose the entire cargo. Sure. And there's a lot of money to be lost. That stuff is, if you're talking about, so let's say now in this day and age, Mexican cartels trying to smuggle that stuff across the border and then up into the United States. They're not in the business of losing money. So I'm not sure that they would take a chance using a self-driving car. Yeah. But let's say from New York, from let's say Brooklyn to Manhattan. Okay. Or and my guy transported a lot of drugs from Brooklyn to other parts of Brooklyn. Brooklyn's a big borough in terms of distance. So he would go from North Brooklyn to South Brooklyn with pounds of heroin in the car. And so that kind of a trip would be something that I think a self-driving car might be used for. But they're too selfish, particularly the wise guys. They're not going to run the risk of losing, that kind of product. Just for the sake of somebody not getting arrested, because the person that they have to mule it,
they don't care,
is expendable. They don't care if he gets caught, as long as he keeps his mouth shut. So.
Well, it made me think of those, like, have you ever seen those? Excuse me. Have you ever seen those like narco subs?
Yes.
Submarines. I mean, those carry literal tons, like 2,000-pound units of cocaine from South America up through the Gulf of Mexico. But they lose those all the time because it's when the manned subs they have. No, the manned subs they have, I believe, can go underwater. But they're unmanned ones. They haven't mastered it yet, so they have to stay just below the surface. Kind of like they're only like sub submerged.
Yeah, I got you.
I mean, but those are autonomous, and those, I mean, and they get busted all the time. There's, I mean, yeah, and those have, I mean, those can have up to 10,000 pounds of product, of like finished product. So it's, you know, when you're looking at quantities like that, maybe not a pound here or a pound there, but when you're looking at like a score that big, maybe there is temptation to be like, how many mules do we have to pay to get that? Versus, you know, these guys, although greedy, I mean, that same exact greed and selfishness, I think, could argue for automation, because they're like, I mean, hell, they're businessmen. They're like, hey, let's cut out the middleman.
Yeah, but here's what happens. The first time one of the cars gets busted with the stuff in it,
it's over.
Now the police are on the lookout for cars with no drivers, and they know that they're being used by so it's an idea, but one that I think needs a lot more thought. I realized as I'm saying this, I'm like, I'm trying to put together this argument in my head, and then I'm like, oh, like I'm literally talking to a guy that busts this shit, and I'm like, why am I trying to be like, no, let me explain to you, like, I know you think you got an idea, Mike, but I'm friends with, you know, I just read a book called Crooked Brooklyn, so let me tell you about what I learned. But to do kind of complete 180 with when they're surveilling the judge, right, and they're putting the stuff in the ceiling, the hole in the ceiling and all that shit, and the guy doing his little cigar dance and, you know, taking the 200 out and all that stuff. Yeah.
How high up does that go? Do you think that, I mean, because that, I mean, that's, you, I always think of just like, you know, that'd be like a stupid person like me. I'd be a mule and I would get caught doing something. But a Supreme Court judge for the state, I mean, how high up does it go? And how easy is it?
The three judges that were caught by, you know, me in this investigation, it was individual. There was no other way. There was nobody else involved. Yeah. And the reason for that is the judges who were involved couldn't take a chance that if they were involving someone else, because they didn't have to involve anyone else, but if they did, there was a chance that that person would give them up. Now, what happened with the first one was he was greedy, and he told the lawyer this is the case in which the lawyer was representing the infant and in order to have the infant's settlement completely done, a judge had to sign off on it. So the judge took advantage of it and said, pay me, otherwise I'm not going to sign off on the infant settlement. The problem was that he picked the wrong guy. You know, the lawyer at the time, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. The lawyer at the time was concerned for himself, and also maybe thought that this was a sting and he was going to get caught if he didn't give it up. So he gave it up. So he picked the wrong guy. The judge picked the wrong guy. But there was no one else involved in that except the judge. And you don't have to go any further. In order to be successful with what these judges did, which was to shake down lawyers and clients, you do it quietly. You do it inside your court, inside your robing room or your chambers, which is why we put the recording device and the videotape in the chambers. You know, so but what happened, and what I meant before by the lawyer, this lawyer must have learned from what the judge was doing, because about, I would say 2 or 3 years later, after the case was over, he got arrested and charged in Manhattan for stealing his client's funds. He was taking client funds and using it for his own purposes. So he wasn't the most honest guy in the world when he was involved with us. Yeah. But to answer your question, nobody else higher than these judges. However, you saw the other case involving the Democratic leader of the party in Brooklyn, Clarence Norman. Yeah. He used a lot of other people, and my personal opinion, although we never were able to get this specifically, was that judges were paying him off in order to get his endorsement for them to get to the Supreme Court. So so that's a different situation. But the judges were just greedy bastards, and
a bunch of fucking rats. Scummy, sleazy rats.
And not with regard to Garson, who was the guy that had the video and the audio in his chambers, he wasn't getting a lot of money from this lawyer. He was, but that's how greedy he was. He would lunches and dinners and and wine and scotch and that kind of stuff. And
it's the hunt. It's not necessarily the take. I think it's the hunt, right? It's the game.
They could get away with it.
It's that little dopamine hit.
Garson was, when he was a lawyer before he became a judge, I shouldn't say when he was a lawyer, he was always a lawyer, but when he was in private practice, he worked one of the major clients he had was the taxi industry in New York. And he was, in order to take care of his business there, he was taking care of judges at the time, so he could make sure that his client would get the most favorable treatment. So when he then went on the bench and became a judge, basically what he said was, "It's my turn."
Yeah.
It's my turn.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one little anecdote. Sure. In the middle of this whole investigation, I'm walking from the Supreme Court building over to my building, which was not far. It was a block or two, and I get a guy who I didn't know who he was, and he was standing by the Supreme Court building, and I think I put this anecdote in the book, and he kind of calls me.
Yeah.
And he said, and he was a court officer, and he said to me, first of all, you're doing the right thing. Yeah. He said, but I got to tell you another story. He went from one judge. I'm sorry, not went from one judge. He was working for a particular judge who was in the criminal term. So that meant he dealt with criminal cases. There's no money to be made by judges who are crooked in a criminal term. However, when you move to the civil side, where you do money cases, then you can shake down people in settlements and stuff. So this judge had the gall and the balls to say in front of his whole staff, "We're moving to civil starting next term, and now we can make some money."
That's insane. That's insane.
Out in the open, not even a problem. Not even a problem. So, So that's the way, and I thought when we had finished these cases that we had made an impact on, the way judges were chosen and how they operated. And it turns out that I don't think we had any impact at all. I think they just kind of flicked it and said, those guys got caught, too bad. Now let's get back to business, So it was... They treated, I got to tell you something, Tom, they treated me like shit. I was a pariah, I would go to Christmas parties or to bar association events, and nobody would come to me except one judge who was a really good guy. I knew him for a long time, and he came up to me, kind of whispered to me, and he said, "You're doing the right thing. Keep it up."
Good.
So
good.
That made me feel good.
The rest of them can go to hell. You don't want to be liked by those people. If there's a bunch of shitty people, if there's a bunch of shitty people around you that give you accolades, you're not doing something right. If a bunch of shitty people are looking at you, if you're in a room with Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini, and they're looking at you and they're like, "Look at this pussy," good.
Yeah,
good.
that's a feather hat, right?
Yeah. You don't want to be in. I mean, I get it's easier said than done. That's the field of work you're in, and it definitely has socially limiting, and it can start to make you question, what are you doing? Is this worth it? But you got to stick up for what you think, and not necessarily even what you think is right, what you objectively know is right? I mean,
right, absolutely.
It's not an argument. Absolutely. It's not. I think you shouldn't be able to shake down. No, it is. That is. We're not arguing, what's your opinion on gravity? I think it's 9.81 meters per second squared. Is that no, that's what it is. There's no, it might be a little lighter, but to move from that corruption, what do you think is going on, right? Because today, November 6th or 5th, I can't keep track. November 5th, 1:30 p.m. East, 1:29 p.m. Eastern time, 2020. We are in the midst of course, 2020 can only deliver an election like this. I don't know what hope I thought, or what hope I thought I had that, like, hey,
year from hell.
Yeah, right. I've been so nauseatingly optimistic. I've had on Delta Force guys, and they're like, "Stop with your doe-eyed bullshit," and I'm like, "No, we gotta stay positive, guys." And my logic is regardless of my political leanings, I was like, I just wanted someone to win decisively, Biden or Trump. I was like, maybe we can just have whatever, because if that's the case, then democracy still wins. I said that the day before. I was like, you know what? Democracy is still like a schmuck. And of course, now here we are, and the whole thing is just diarrhea on fire. So that being said, what is happening? Is there a guy like you out there that's figuring out what the hell is happening? And I'm not even trying to go pro or against anyone. Everyone knows my leanings on this podcast, but I don't even want to do that. Just objectively, is there an archangel looking over right now and finding out what the hell is going on with these ballots?
Well, the only way I can answer that, Tom, is to say I hope so. But I have to tell you this. And this probably answers the question better than anything. When I first got into this corruption investigation, which took about 5 years of my life, in terms of to do it. It went from one case to another, to another, to another. When I had the idea of putting the videotape and the audio in the judges' chambers.
Yeah.
And I went to a guy who worked for me, who had been around a long time. He had done a lot of investigations. He had done a lot of organized crime investigations, was involved with wiretaps. And I told him what I wanted to do. And his answer to me his comment was, "Are you fucking crazy? Are you crazy? You can't do that. Nobody has ever put a camera or audio device in a judge's chambers." I said, "Well, that's not necessarily the deciding factor that no one's done that." I said, "What do you think about it?" He said, "Well, I don't think you should do it." So I then said to myself, now I really am going to do it.
Yeah.
Because I was certain that I was right about this.
Yeah.
And I was certain that if we did that, it was going to bear fruit.
Yeah.
And you see, it surely did.
Yeah.
And it led to the whole investigation. 3 judges, the number 3 person in the New York State Assembly, another assembly person who was in a different situation. But all of this came from this investigation because people felt, as you just asked, is there somebody out there who will listen to me? And they found out that there was. When the lady or the woman who was involved with the judge who was fixing her divorce case had gone to another prosecutor's office. They had gone to the FBI. She had gone to the federal prosecutors. She had gone to the attorney general's office, and they basically all said to her in so many words the same thing my colleague said to me: "Are you fucking crazy? We're not. There's no way. You're out of your mind. You're nuts." So what happened was she saw on TV, on the news one night, the sentencing of the first judge that we convicted, and the guy with the microphones, in the lapels of the lawyer.
Yeah.
And saw that there was a prosecutor out there who would actually take judges on.
Yeah.
And she came to us the next day, had to sit down with one of my colleagues who was riding. We call riding the guy that's on call to take these kinds of cases. And I got to tell you, and I think I write this in the book, that he had gone to people who were just below me in my division. And they said to him the same thing: "Are you nuts? This lady's probably crazy." But he didn't give up. He went to George Terra, who was a detective in the office, and George interviewed the woman, Frida Hanimoff. And he came to me and he said, "Mike, I think there's something here." And I trusted George, 100%. And I said, "Let's do it." And that's how I got involved. Now, I took the case myself. Mm-hmm. Because obviously there were people who worked for me who were not comfortable with doing this. So I did it myself. If you want to be a leader, you got to be able to get into the trenches. And I did. And I did it. And but there are, Tom, as you know, there are people who are afraid of what the consequences may be, even though they know that
what they're doing
they're doing the right thing, and therefore they shy away. I didn't. I didn't shy away.
Because you're a man. That's why.
Well, I got to tell you that it did cost me, but
well, no one's ever gotten anything worth it for free.
I'm still here.
Exactly.
And wrote the book, and you liked it. So
I loved it, and I'm going to plug it on my podcast. But you're right.
Thank you.
I hate that logic of no one's ever done that before. Okay, if we stick with that logic, we wouldn't even be in the caves. We would be primordial, like amphibians like looking
Right.
at the beach and like, I think I'm gonna crawl up on the beach with my fins, and other fishes are going, no one's ever done that before. I think
Yeah.
I got an idea for this thing. It's called the wheel. No one's ever done that before. Dumbass, stay here. On and on. I mean, imagine the Wright brothers. Imagine being alive in 1902 and seeing these two jackasses on the beach with 3-piece suits and a thing made of balsa wood, paper mache, and a diesel engine. And he's like, I'm gonna go flying. It'd be like, what the hell are you smoking?
Yeah.
And then he did it. And then 12 years later, 13 years later, the First World War was arguably decided by airborne surveillance. The point is the idea that you're not gonna do something because no one else has done it.
Is nuts. Hey, listen, you know, the first book that I did, Friends of the Family, which was the Mafia Cops case, that case sat in the federal prosecutor's office for 10 years. The allegation sat in boxes for 10 years until Tommy Dage, the detective who worked with me, came to me and said, I got this. You want to do something? Now, this is another case. You imagine sitting around and taking on two detectives with a 10-year-old case?
I haven't read that. Is that one on Audible?
I don't think that they did an audiobook of it, but it's probably going to, because we just signed a big deal with. Are you familiar with Terry Winter, the writer? He wrote Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Sopranos.
Okay, yeah.
Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah, okay.
Well, he is now signed on to do this, to do Friends of the Family as hopefully a TV series. We're very, very close. Yeah, we signed it. So I think what's going to happen is HarperCollins, which was the publishing company, is going to more than likely re-release the book, and I'm going to push them for to do an audiobook, because I think that that's the way of the world.
Well, yeah, it's like I tell Bruce, who I love you, Bruce. If it's not on Audible, I'll go and buy it on Kindle, and then you can get your phone to read it to you. The problem is it's in that shitty robot voice. It'd be like, Crooked Brooklyn by Michael Vecchione today, and it's just there's no inflection. It's all. But I was gonna say, Friends of the Family. Let's backtrack from that. That could be another episode, and I will buy that on Kindle, and you and I can do an episode on that. So let's not spoil it. Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it. Let's divert from that.
I won't. Okay. It's a terrific. These two detectives thought they got away with this. They were mob payroll, killing people for the mob, and they thought that they retired. They were in Las Vegas, living in Las Vegas, 10 years. And
I'm gonna buy it right now. I'm going to go on to Kindle right now as we're talking, and I'm going to buy it. Friends of the Family. For everybody listening, just stand by. Friends of the Family. Come on. Family.
Yeah, you might have to put one of our names in.
Friends of the Family. Yep, there it is. Top one.
There you go.
Friends of the Family. And got it.
Terrific. Well, when you read it, after you read it, have me back. We'll talk about it.
I will.
Another unbelievable case.
And I'm sure you can track your sales, so you can call my bullshit. I did just buy it. So, what do you think, as someone that did surveillance like this, what do you think about something like Project Veritas that seems to be getting a ton of shit from all sides this year, and they do have leanings, that's undeniable, and I get it, and I can get if people that don't lean that way can cognitive dissonance can kind of push it away. Sure, I get it. We all do it. You see someone you like getting bad rep and you just kind of block it out. We're all guilty of it. We do it with sports teams. We do it with lovers, whatever. But there does seem to be a certain, and your book proved this, there does seem to be a certain objective, concrete quality to just a video or audio of someone incriminating themselves. And I feel like in a world right now where it's all an information warfare from the left and from the right, from Fox and CNN, from the DNC, from the RNC, everyone's trying to screw each other and paint everyone in a bad light. And you never know what's real, what's fake, what's an actual email, what's a manufactured email, what's foreign intelligence. I mean, it is, as Dale Comstock, the guy I've had on here who worked for the CIA, said, it's a foggy forest of mirrors. I feel like the only way to kind of cut through all this bullshit is you do have to do what you guys did, and you just have to get video and audio of the person doing the thing that you are claiming they did.
There's no question that makes a case. Listen, I've done many trials in my career.
Yeah.
I've done many investigations. I've done some where I took other people's work and did the cases, but I've done a lot myself. And when you have concrete evidence as opposed to a witness just telling you, or telling a jury what happened, it's like night and day.
Yeah.
Particularly with cases involving, wise guys, because you could get a million witnesses, not witnesses in the sense that I've seen it happen, but people who hear other people, do stuff and say things and things like that. But the person who's telling that to the jury is as bad sometimes as the person who's on trial. So you need corroboration. You need, when you have it, and you have that kind of corroboration like we had with the judges, well, a jury is going to look at it and say, I saw what you just did. It's not, I heard somebody tell me you just did it. I saw it. So, it's very difficult to get around that. And, in the judge case, in Judge Garson with the video, that he and his lawyer actually said to the jury that what you see, don't believe what you see. The lawyer actually said that. And because he said that he did not take any money. So I remember standing up and replaying the tape where he takes the money that was handed to him by the cash that we gave to the lawyer to give to the judge, and he counts out a few bills and puts it in his pocket on videotape.
The 200.
So I said to the jury, he wants you to believe that what you just saw is a figment of your imagination. So to answer your question, there is no doubt that when you have someone on videotape, audio tape also, when you have someone's voice is also as good, but not as good as the videotape. That you're going to be successful 9.9 times out of 10 in terms of a case. There's no doubt about it. And I've done cases. Project Veritas used to bring us cases. Corruption cases, of local officials. We had a few, and those, I can tell you, those tapes are invaluable as far as not necessarily, and I mean valuable in the sense that you don't necessarily have to go to trial, because someone looks at that with a lawyer and they say to themselves, I better cut my losses here, do what I can to get out from under this. So it's invaluable, and that's why we did it. I mean, just think about this, Tom. I'll go back to what that colleague of mine said. No one's ever done that before. So let's assume I took his advice and didn't do this. So now I would have a crooked lawyer on the witness stand testifying against a Supreme Court judge, and the crooked lawyer who admits to being crooked says, oh, I paid that guy money. Well, now the lawyer who for the judge gets up and cross-examines him and says, well, it's just your word against his honor's word. This guy, right? What do you have? You have basically sometimes just a tie, and that's not good enough. So we had to have the videotape.
I mean, it makes sense more and more about, I imagine you know what a SCIF is, SCIF?
Yes.
Secure Compartmentalized Information Facility. They use them a lot for like hyper classified Air Force projects. They go in, for everyone listening, it's basically, I mean, some of them are bigger, but it's almost like a Connex box that's just, it's like EMP shielded, it's soundproof, there's no video can go in or out, you're stripped of all electronics when you go in. It's basically like the super secret place, right? It's like you and a friend.
Congress has it. Congress used it during those impeachment hearings, those interviews.
I mean, it's basically, it's like the grown-up version of like you and a friend going to like the edge of the the recess playground and being in the corner and be like, I have a crush on so-and-so, right? It's grown-up secrets trading.
Exactly.
But I'm just thinking more and more like, man, if I was ever in the spot of just doing something corrupt, I think you just have to assume that you're being recorded at all times, even if you're not. And it could come across as paranoia, which works for the law enforcement. They want to instill paranoia, but you would just have to always be quiet. Just never assume that even if it's you and your wife at a vacation home in the middle of the Pacific, just assume that you're being recorded. You would have to do it all. I've often thought about this. Like if I wanted to, I guess, wave to the NSA, if I wanted to like assassinate the president, how would you do it? Or the Pope? You would just have to, you couldn't, I mean, you'd almost just have to like write it down on like pencil with like, I mean, that's what they used in Eric Schlosser's book Command and Control, all about the nuclear missile silos, the Titan missile silos, especially the one that blew up in Damascus, Arkansas. Is one of the tiers of security going in was like you had to be buzzed in, and then there's like another chamber, but there was a third chamber. Once they knew you came in and they had you on CCTV, and by this point you're already like 10 floors underground, they would then issue a code for the last door, and you would have to open it and punch it in, and then it would prompt them to unlock it. But before they unlocked it, you had that there's a little, it's like a metal room with nothing else in there. I'm not making this up. And there's a little metal wastebasket, and there's a box of matches, and you have to burn the actual thing. And because they were like, nothing is going in, and if you refuse to burn it, you can't come in, and you also can't go out. And so it's just, but there are that tiers of everything. And so I've always thought, like, man, if you really wanted to get away with anything, I don't think you can say it anywhere. I mean, even if you're out in the middle of the woods, I feel like you would have to, I mean, you'd have to get under like a blanket and like write it down with like chalk and show someone and then erase it. I feel like there's, I don't know where I'm going with this, and you certainly
No, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah. I understand what you're saying. You've got to, if you're a bad guy, you have to know that wherever you are, there's the potential for someone to have you on tape doing whatever it is that you're doing. There's no doubt about that. No doubt about it. And, you know, the proliferation of cell phones, I mean, makes it, you know, doubles, triples, quadruples the amount of the ability to have some people pick you up on tape. You know, it's you just have to be, you know, extremely careful. Or you know, in your example of killing the president or killing the Pope, you've got to, it's a suicide mission. You've got to give it to somebody who doesn't care. You just go in. You know, and do it, and then, you know, understand that you're going to get killed. Maybe. And there are people who'll do that. Tom, you know?
I mean, Lee Harvey Oswald. Yeah, I mean, if you ever read his diaries, the dude. It wasn't just a political thing. It was, I'm going to be immortal.
Yeah.
Some of them do it. Yeah. It's.
I know there are nuts who
psychopaths
who do that. Who do that.
Psychopaths.
You know,
with voice recording. Sorry, I was interrupting you.
No. Go ahead.
I was going to say with
voice recordings.
Yeah. You were just saying about, you know, especially with the abundance of cell phones. I think about every like Alexa or Google Home sitting in everyone's home, and they say it doesn't record you, just like we knew for a fact that the NSA would never do domestic surveillance. We knew that for a fact, right? And then what comes out? And then to go further, in one of James Bamford's books about the NSA, he talks about the importance of voice recording. Because in my mind, I was always like, if it's not video, then how can you tell that it's just not someone impersonating, or you could just deny it? Apparently, you have to use a high-fidelity microphone, but your voice is up to 100 times more unique than your fingerprint. You have like a voice print.
Well, we use voice prints all the time, you know, with in investigations. Voice prints are excellent, and I have, you know, I've been involved with situations. I did a lot of murder cases, and there are a lot of people who were taped. I shouldn't say a lot. There are people who were taped issuing threats and things like that. And you know, when you have them on tape and they say it's not me, well, you know, there's a way of proving that they're wrong. You know, one of the other things that we use, talk about videotape, is when I was riding homicide duty when I was a young assistant DA, one of the things that we always did was we had a video camera in the room when we took a confession from a defendant and witness statements, because there's nothing like turning on that video camera at a trial and playing it in front of a jury. And believe me, I've had some of the worst people you could ever possibly imagine say that I didn't say that. You know, you confront them on cross-examination and you say, they say, no, I never said that. Well, you just wheel out the television, pop the tape in, or I'm really dating myself here with a tape, but pop the device in and say, isn't that you? Isn't that what you're saying? It's over at that point.
Yeah.
It's over. Well, let me give you an example. Go back to the judges. When we picked up Garson and brought him to we brought him to that Army base to do the questioning. And I'm telling you, it was one of the supervising judges called it the gulag.
Yeah.
I think I write that.
Yeah.
It looked like that. Tom, it was freezing.
Yeah.
There was snow on the ground. There was no one around. We put him in this room. And when I sat down, gave him his Miranda warnings, he was with his lawyer. And he said to me, I didn't do any of that. I said, really? And I said, well, let me show you what we have, Your Honor, because he didn't think that we had anything. And we had our detectives outside. I literally did this. Wheeled the TV in, popped one of our recordings in, and there he was. You know what happened after that? The lawyer said to me, Mike, can you just wait outside for a minute? Left the room. I would say 10 minutes later, the lawyer comes to me and says, he can give you the head of the Democratic Party in Brooklyn because he wants to get out from under this. That's a true story. That's exactly what happened. The lawyer who was the witness against him did the same thing. He said, no. I said, really? I said to him, didn't you break the judge's candy dish in his chambers one day? And he goes,
how's Scooter doing?
Yeah, I did say that. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, it's the kind of evidence that is, there's no evidence that's totally invulnerable, but, it's the kind of evidence that's terrific. And now, with the development and with the improvement of video, it's a good thing, but it's also it's a double-edged sword because there are people who say that there are machines in which you can do quote unquote photoshopping of video images, and but you have to. That's why you can't depend just on the videotape. Yeah. Project Veritas has just the tape, but you need the witness in. You need somebody to kind of give it the imprimatur that it's exactly what happened.
Yeah. So it's we have deep fakes now. You seen those deep fake? They're called deep fake. Have you seen those videos? You can make anyone look like anything. You could take me and like blend my face with like Bill Clinton, and you could have me talking about bombing Serbia or something. And it's the more processing time. It's the longer you let it process, the more realistic it gets. Granted, it's still in its infancy, but I mean, go to a flip phone, a black and white phone, and look at that and say that's going to be the next big thing. It's a flip phone. You go, just give it time, and now it's like this isn't even a new iPhone, but it would still blow the shit out of anything from the 90s. Exactly. I think it's alien technology.
Hey, listen, I did a case against two wise guys. They committed a murder. It was of a guy who was a rival to them, who was selling drugs on their territory, and this guy who they killed was one of these all-American boys. He was a high school football hero. He had a good job on Wall Street. And the case went nowhere until somebody came forward and said, I think I had this little piece of information, and we built the case. We made a case. But I knew that I had the right guys, and I had one witness who happened to be in a jail cell, and the one of the eyewitnesses to the case had a police artist draw a sketch of one of the guys that did the murder. And when this witness was in the jail cell / defendant in the jail cell, he looked at the photo which was hanging up the drawing which was hanging up in the police station, and said to the detective, "Come here, haven't you caught?" His name was Joe Beef. "Haven't you caught this guy Joe Beef yet?" So they said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "That sketch is Joe Beef." So where I'm going with this is that the ability to have, in addition to to a videotape, the ability to have a witness who has that kind of knowledge of the people that are involved in the investigation or involved in the crime it makes the case that much more, that much stronger. In that case, we had no videotape. So I knew that it was not going to fly if I had just this witness. So we went out and found a total of 4 witnesses who told not only the crux of the story, but also little bits and pieces that that kind of made it a complete puzzle, and my argument to the jury was that, maybe one guy can be attacked, two guys can be attacked, but 3 and 4 basically not saying the same thing, because they weren't parrots, they weren't, because that's another argument that a defense makes, is that, they're too rehearsed. These guys gave little bits and pieces that kind of say to the jury, you know what, that guy does know what he's talking about. And, but that coupled with a videotape would have been, there wouldn't have been a trial, Tom.
Yeah.
There wouldn't have been a trial. The defense attorney would have looked to, to plead out and work a deal if we had that.
Yeah.
But, and it worked. It worked. These guys, I convicted both of these wise guys. They're still in jail right now.
Yeah. So. And in a way, video and audio, that also kind of strengthens I would say it strengthens the justice system, because if that becomes the norm of you have to provide that, if you can get video and audio and it's just like 10 different candid angles and days of me, and every time a subject comes up, I'm just like, oh yeah, no, fuck that. Like, no, I don't do that. Tommy, you sure you don't take money from this guy? I'm like, dude, fuck no, dude. Like, I've got a podcast. I live above my parents' garage. Like, I'm just doing, they get that so many angles. You get to a point where it's like, that guy candidly is like saying in confidence he has no idea what you're talking about. And so it kind of helps, right?
Oh, without a doubt.
Granted, again, I'm nauseatingly optimistic at times, so I can see where it's like, you dumb bitch, this is going to be used against you. But yeah, so I got you 5 more minutes. What is going to happen right now? And I try pretty hard not to bring politics into this podcast, but this election's in the air and it's kind of hard not to talk about it. What do you think is going to happen with, and not even for political outcome, do you think that they're going to expose fraud? Either or, it doesn't matter for who. Again, I'm not trying to make an argument for or against Biden and or Trump. Do you think that they're going to find some fraud? Because it seems like
I think so, but I'm so pessimistic about the way that investigations happen in Washington these days that I don't know anything will come of it. I just, I can't imagine a stronger case than what they have already in terms of the whole Russia, dossier stuff, and yet there's not some poor schmuck lawyer for the FBI is the only guy who took a plea. Yeah. Because he admitted to changing documents and to make an FBI form say something that it didn't say, So I believe that that there is a deep state, and I think that
absolutely is. That's
I think I don't think it's going to happen. As I said before, now whether or not I do think that this is not going to be settled today, tomorrow, next week. It's going to get
a
long way.
This is going to go exactly if you could imagine an election in the form of 2020, that's exactly what this is.
Yeah, exactly.
2020 is. I don't know why I'm so surprised. Of course 2020 did this. It's ruined.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. I think that it's I think no matter what was going to be the outcome as far as, the number on election night, that somebody was going to say it's not right and we got to do this, no matter which side it was. I do really believe that there was Fox made a big mistake with that calling Arizona when it did.
Oh yeah,
because that had a psychological effect on a lot of people, and there was still votes out there. Still people voting.
That wasn't incompetence. I think that's psychological. That's right out of the PSYOP handbook. It's exactly.
I agree with you. I think that there were. You talk about the never Trumpers. The never Trumpers were everywhere, and including at Fox, and so that was a really big. I remember I happened to be watching. I didn't watch much of the night, but I happened to be watching at that point, and I said, "Whoa, what is that?"
Yeah.
And I didn't really understand it. But,
I watched till 5 a.m. and I was watching. I was just watching, and it was just. I was watching all these. I was watching some of these like more liberal streams, and they're all just like, "Fuck it, God damn it, Trump won again," and they're just going on. I was watching; it just kind of seemed over. And I was watching it, and like I just screenshotted the electoral. But I remember the reason why I kind of stayed up was because it was at like 2 or 3, and I don't know why I'm trying to make it sound like I was exclusively watching. I was playing video games and listening to an audiobook. It was just an excuse. I was like, I gotta pay attention. This is American history. Bullshit. I'm just shooting Nazis, and I'm like, I'm doing something good, but. I was watching and I was like, but I just remember seeing the because I kept refreshing like the percentage of votes in. And I saw it pause because I'm OCD about it. I do this with watching my own videos on YouTube, seeing the numbers go different times. I like watching how it changes over time. So I was watching it and I was like, oh, they're kind of freezing. Because I've come to like notice really quickly when something's like sketchy with my stuff. And I was like, oh, they're freezing. And I thought it was my internet. And I kept checking. I was like, they're freezing. I was like, why are they all freezing? And then one by one, these states... None of the ones that had been called for Trump and none of the ones that had been called for Biden, but the ones that were still being decided and were leaning Trump, and this isn't an opinion or a bias, this is a fact. Wisconsin, Michigan, they all the voting, they just stopped. And I was like, well, my first thought was like, oh my God, there's like a terrorist attack. I was like, something happened. I was like, 2020, damn it. But then they're like, everyone's going home, and this is only the fourth election I've voted in. I'm 30, but I was trying to think. I was like, I'm ashamed, but I actually couldn't remember. I was like, wait, does voting normally stop? I actually couldn't remember. I was like, maybe it does past a certain point. I don't know, midnight. Is there?
No, counting doesn't stop. The voting stops.
The voting stops. The counting. And I was like, trying to think, and I was trying to think of 2016, but I went to bed for that. But then I was like, Obama, Romney, Obama, McCain. I was pretty young, but I do remember like Bush, Gore, and I remember that was weird. But I was like, maybe it stopped, and it just stopped, and it stopped in all these, and I was like, that's weird. And then Trump came out at like 2 a.m. and was like, we're gonna halt this because we don't want anyone finding ballots at 4 a.m. And I just kind of laughed. I was like, yeah, that like because that is a thing, not sarcastically, that is a thing. And I woke up the next morning, I was like, how the fuck did these flip? And then it's like, what, the statistical impossibility that is 168,000 votes came in for Biden in Michigan. Oh, sorry, 168,000 ballots were found. 168,000 of which were for Biden, not for Trump and not for Joe Jorgensen. And I was like,
oh, I know, it's. I
was like, that's a little hairy. It's getting a little sketchy. And then it turns out that Biden had more votes than not Democratic votes. Biden had more votes than there were voters in Wisconsin. And I was like, it's getting a little creepy, but then Trump calls to stop the counting, and I'm like, well, that's not good either. That's not good optics. And then I was just like, I don't know what I expected. Of course, 2020 just takes a big old shit on the electoral process and is like, have fun, y'all, but...
That's it.
That's it.
Hey, listen, you gotta have me back. We gotta talk about the dentist, the corrupt dentist who was stealing body parts.
Yeah.
You haven't gotten to that story.
Was creepy as hell. I don't know if I don't think you play video games, but in the off chance you do, Grand Theft Auto 4, which came out in like 2008. And it takes place in New York, Liberty City. One of the missions is you kind of go like take these 2 bodies from a morgue and like you bring them somewhere, and the guy he's like, where are you, like your character's like, what are you doing with these bodies? And he's like, there's a doctor that takes them and they use the tissue. And I remember playing that video game and I was like, that's such bullshit, this is too. And then listening to your book and I was like, oh my God, they're actually body snatchers.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, before we even
Mastro Marino.
Yeah, I was gonna say, before we even do the family one, let's set up one for the body snatchers.
Sure.
By any chance, do you have your calendar? We don't need to do this right now. Any chance you have Sunday the 22nd? That's my next opening. I have guests every day until then.
Hold on.
I've got that whole week, actually.
Yeah, it's 22nd. I'm not sure because it's I'm supposed to be taking my sons out for one of their birthdays on that day.
Gotcha.
So how about during the week? How about the 23rd, 24th, something like that?
Whatever you want. 23rd.
Okay.
How about what's 24th looking like for you?
That's fine.
24th?
Yeah.
What time works for you?
This time works.
2 p.m. Eastern time?
What's that say?
2 p.m. Eastern time?
2 p.m.
Sorry, it's I normally do 2 o'clock. I'm sorry, I'm losing my mind.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I'm gonna put you down. That's becoming a thing now, where I'm now scheduling guests at the end of episodes. I don't know why I don't wait to finish recording. I guess I'm just impatient.
Well, good. 2 o'clock on the 24th. We'll talk about
the body snatchers.
The body snatchers.
There you go. I got you on. That was some creepy shit. That was some creepy shit. And yeah, I was gonna say we can segue into that. My uncle did his residency. He's brilliant. He went to Duke Med School and did his residency at Jackson Memorial in Miami, which does more than 51% of all the organ transplants in the Western Hemisphere. And he worked in the top floor where the helicopters come in. So at the most traumatic spot of the trauma hospital.
Right.
He told me right before I got into med school, he said, take organ donor off your card. And I thought he was fucking with me. And he said, take it off. And he goes, because if it's not, I can tell you for a fact, 1, they won't work as hard on you. 2, before the helicopter even lands, you'll be marked up with a marker like a stake. Who's getting what? He goes, there's a lot of dirty money and people. There's a billionaire that needs a new liver. He goes, he'll get it. I tell people that and they roll their eyes. This guy is a physician. This guy is a respected physician. And listening to your book, certainly, granted yours was with dead bodies, but still, I don't know. I'm getting a little.
Don't listen. I'll just leave this.
Okay.
Say this to your audience. This case with dead bodies, as you say, created more, reaction, or the greatest reaction that I have ever had in all my years, with the families who when we told them that their loved one had been ravaged before they were embalmed or cremated, and I mean ravaged, as you heard from the book. They were beside themselves, and every time the case was on the calendar, we had a courtroom filled with family members who were ready to, if they could, they would have taken Mastro Marino's head off. I tell you, that's how angry they were. Yeah. And it had nothing to do. When I first called his lawyer and said, this is what we have, he said, well, what's the big deal? It's dead bodies and it's, just paperwork. There's nothing here. You're never going to get a jury to convict this guy. Well,
yeah. Wait until it's your family member.
I won't give away the ending at this point because it's a good ending.
That is but people often wonder, they're like, "What do you care? It's a dead body." Until it starts to be someone you love, and you realize that they're just being handled like an expired gallon of milk. Just go throw it in the woods, and you're like, they're just being ravaged. Yeah, just shit. What was that case in Georgia in the early 2000s? That family that wasn't cremating, they said they were, but they were just stacking the bodies in the woods. Do you remember that?
I do remember it vaguely. I don't remember specifics, but
me neither.
Hey, look, when we raided this guy's garage, he had meat freezers in his garage. And we opened up the freezers, and there were body parts in the freezer. So
that is some ghoulish shit.
Yeah, it was.
Let's save that for the next episode because we're going to get too into it.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you so much for coming on. For everybody listening and watching, Crooked Brooklyn, I'll put it in the description and the top comment, and it'll also be in the thumbnail. It is there it is. Fantastic book. It's only It was only 8 hours, 7-8 hours. In terms of audiobooks,
that was great.
That's very doable. Yeah, everyone listen to it. It's a great book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I wouldn't have had you on if I didn't enjoy it. I would have been like, Bruce, this guy sucks.
Yeah.
But no, I liked it. People say that too. I am brutal. I don't give a shit. If someone's book sucks and I think it's going to be terrible, I'm going to be like, dude, get lost. I don't want to talk to you. Your book was awesome. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Until next time. Stay safe. God bless. God bless America.
Yep. Gotcha. Take care.
Peace.